All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Brittany Cartwright, and I am with the Palm Beach North Chamber of Commerce, which is hosting this webinar today. We're also joined in with Gary Lesser of Lesser Landy Smith, who is our speaker and sponsor for the day. A couple housekeeping items before I go through the bio of Gary Lesser. We are going to have everyone in mute so that Gary has the floor and he can have everyone's full attention. There are going to be questions, time for questions towards the end. So if you do have any questions that come up throughout the webinar, please go ahead and put them in the chat box. You'll see that when you hover over your screen, there's a chat icon on the bottom middle part of your screen. Click on that. You can either send a message to everyone or to myself, again, Brittany Cartwright. And then we'll go over those at the end. Okay, so we welcome Gary Lesser of Lesser Lesser Landy Smith. And he is the managing partner and a third-generation lawyer in West Palm Beach, whose firm actually handles personal injury cases throughout Florida by referral and recommendation with no formal advertising. Gary represents clients and their families who have suffered serious injury or the loss of a loved one due to the negligence of another. Gary has handled numerous high-profile cases, including automobile injury, wrongful death, medical malpractice, product injury, premises liability, and other related injury cases. Gary is widely recognized for his significant case results, dedication to his clients, and leadership in a number of civic and nonprofit organizations. He is currently on the Board of Governors for the Florida Bar. He is also a part of the Palm Beach County Bar Association, and he is a current board member of the Palm Beach North Chamber of Commerce. Without further ado, Gary, take it away.
Hello, everybody. I'm sharing the screen, so hopefully you see the welcome. The webinar will begin momentarily, and instructions on how to conduct yourself with technological issues that are beyond my ability. That's going to be for Brittany. All right, there's me. Does everyone see the slides? All right, good. That's a 10-year-old photo. I'm never going to stop using that photo. That's my number one tip for today. If you have a photo of you that you like, regardless of how much time goes by, keep using that photo. I want to thank everyone for being here today. I was told that this is the biggest turnout that so far the Palm Beach North Chamber has had with these types of webinars. It's weird because, Zoom webinars are really starting to become the new normal. And it's my hope and expectation that I'll share some information today that will be helpful and that will kind of keep us on the best path as we all go forward during these coronavirus times. And my firm recognized right away when this coronavirus thing started that we were going to see a significant decline in new client calls. And that is what happened, actually. And as was mentioned, our firm handles personal injury work, but we don't do any direct advertising. No TV, no billboard. You're not going to see my face on the back of a bus. I'm pretty sure no one wants to see that. And our whole business model is based on the idea that if someone is hurt in some way because of reputation, our results, or our relationships, that injured person or their family is going to be referred to our firm. That's it. That's our whole business model. That person might be referred by a current or a prior client, another lawyer, another professional, or someone else that we know from organizations in the community. We knew that that model was going to be challenged greatly and that we needed to lean into our strengths for the firm to be able to continue going forward. Now, this requires a small look back to where the firm was when I joined 28 years ago. So if you look at our firm materials, it says since 1927 and 3 generations. And my grandfather started the firm in 1927. This is all true. And my dad joined the firm in 1960. And I joined the firm in 1992. But the reality is, and I need for you to appreciate this, because everyone has their challenges. My challenges began in 1992 because the firm looked very different than it does now. My firm is in a very small building in what I would call peripheral downtown. It was not a great part of town. But my father got my grandfather to buy that building in the 1960s. By the time I came along in the early 30s, pardon me, 30 years later, the original decor was still there. Thick orange shag carpet up to your ankles, wood paneling as far as the eye could see, which wasn't that far. I knew things were going to have to change, but I didn't know how much until the third day of work when I went to my dad's office and I said, "Dad, I meant to ask you, but when am I going to get paid?" And he said in his voice, he got this great bellowing voice, "Son, you don't get paid." And then I realized this horrible thought. I'd been there for 3 days. I hadn't seen a client. Not a single client. And the only phone calls I was getting was from my fiance, now my wife. And it occurred to me, my father was really semi-retired. We had a part-time receptionist and really no clients. And I thought, I'm 3 days into my career as a lawyer. I've already committed career suicide. What am I going to do about it? But what I did over the next 28 years with my partners is we built a firm based on shared values. I'd like to tell you how I did it and how we've been leaning into these strengths, especially during these coronavirus times. There's a new normal taking shape. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like or what form it will take, but life goes on and business goes on. So the first thing that we're going to discuss, relationships. The most important word is relationships. And advertising is fine for some people, but a well-designed marketing plan is great and can be very helpful to business. But it can't be a standalone. In fact, I would tell you, it shouldn't be your main framework. It should be an add-on to your relationships. Now, the next slide asks a question. How would you relate your current network of relationships? I think what I'd like you to try to do, if you're able to, on the chat feature, is to answer your current network of relationships. Is it amazing? Could it use some work? Are you at a point where you don't have any time for new relationships and new people? Or D, you wish you knew more people? Take a minute and chat respond if you're able to do so. And we're going to move on. So it's really a trick question in the sense that this could always use some work. How do you build relationships? How do you grow relationships you currently have in these coronavirus times? My first answer is always meaningful community involvement. So I recommend that what we do here at the firm, and you'll see that I have, let's take a quick look to see the chat responses. Wait 1 sec. Wow. All right. Most people want to meet new people. That's very encouraging because that's what we're here to talk about today. We have a model that we use for lawyers who join the firm. Join 3 organizations. One that's going to be your place where you really think you feel strongly and you see yourself as a leader. A second organization where you think you want to be a regular. Oh, there's Bianca. Good to see her again. And then a third organization where maybe it's not your strongest place, but you feel you care about the cause and you want to learn more. And when we hire a new lawyer, this is what we have that lawyer do. Where do you want to be on the board? Maybe on an exec. Where do you want to be someone who's known? Now, what's funny is this isn't usually what ends up happening. A year later, the organization that someone picks to be their go-to organization maybe ends up number 2 or 3 on the list. And maybe number 2 and number 3 becomes number 1. Why? Why is that? Well, it's one of 3 reasons. Number 1, the cause in question really speaks to you. You say to yourself, this is work I really believe in and I want to be a part of. Sometimes it's a question of the leadership. You see who the executive director is, who their team is, and you like working with those people. And third, as is often the case, it's the people who are involved. And you like these people, and these people start to become your people, which is really part of the goal. And I want to explain something. We don't tell our people to choose organizations to get business. We tell them to get involved in organizations that seem meaningful to them. And we spend some time developing that concept. What's important to you? Is it an issue of care for the elderly? Is it education? Is it children in need? And we discuss what the cause is and try to figure out where the best organization is to get involved. And then we put 100% support behind those efforts. Scrolling. And what ends up happening is if you get involved in the right organization or organizations that speak to the values that are important to you, you end up forging relationships with people that are involved, who share your values. And this is the best way to form meaningful personal and professional relationships. That I'm still friends with and work with people who I met in 1992 and 1993. This is the way you do it. If your goal is to go to an event and hand out as many business cards as you can, and then count the business cards that you got back in return, of course, it's different now in the virtual world. That's not a long-term success. You're just going to replicate that every month or so. It has to be a focus on who you are meeting with. Now, there aren't any fundraisers to go to, and certainly no in-person meetings, which are happening just like right now at your computer, at your home or your office. So this requires an even greater effort. I do want to make a full disclosure. Behind me is not my office. This is the office of my dreams. This is one of my many virtual backgrounds. And by the way, on Zoom, have fun with the virtual backgrounds. It can be your firm logo, your business, your backyard, your animal. We're spending more and more time on Zoom. So this is what I wish my office looked like. But in reality, I'm sitting at my office in West Palm Beach, Florida. Everything now in the virtual age requires a greater effort. So the first thing you have to do is identify the causes that matter to you. But then from there, you have to be present. If you show up on a Zoom meeting and you sit there and maybe you type in the background and then you hang up and you wait to the next one on your schedule, you're failing. I don't know a better way to put it. Now more than ever, you have to follow up. What are things that we can do to follow up? Oh, I did want to point attention to this slide, the Outbreak Jewish Family Service. I have this slide here because this was a cause that I identified with. Why? My mother was one of the founders and served on the board. And when I came into town in the early 90s, I got involved. And to me, this organization, which provides counseling to families in crisis and food and helping people who are victims of domestic abuse and so many other, helping seniors, Holocaust survivors. I said, there's no organization that is providing this bundle of services to help people. So this has been a home for me and now my family for a very long time. And I believe that Mark Hoban, the CEO, is on this call, and Tara Laxer, who works there in fundraising and marketing, is on the call. Am I getting business here? Sporadically, perhaps. For sure, people I know there, but that's not it. This is a long-term relationship. If you're looking for short-term relationships to get business, well, that's going to work just as well as your short-term relationships to make friends. You'll recycle people. They're not your friends. They're not your relationships. You have to make a commitment and put the time in. And so some ways to do that involve follow-up. And there's not a one-size-fit-all. There's many things you can do. In fact, you should be doing all of these things. Phone calls. After the meeting, maybe you heard, I was on a meeting on Friday of last week, and I learned that a friend of mine lost a loved one. I didn't know. It happened like a month ago. But in regular times, this is someone who I would see, or at least talk to pretty often. I felt terrible. They lost their daughter. You don't ever want to lose a family member, but I think losing a child in particular is especially painful. And I emailed, and then I called. And we spoke just for a few minutes, and he was so appreciative. I felt so bad for him. So follow-up is always the key. He's going to remember that I called him after the meeting, but it can be an email. When you text to say hello, hey, saw your face amongst 30 other faces. How are you? A text or an email. Make a plan for a virtual coffee. The notes that I'm looking at used to say virtual drink, but I thought that was bad. So certainly you can have a virtual cocktail or a virtual coffee or a virtual breakfast, or just talk for a few minutes with Zoom, with Facebook, with any of the platforms that are out there. Now, it says in capital letters, if you see the slide, empathy is important. What does that mean? It means at the end of the day, you're either a mercenary or you're a real person. You can be pretty mercenary about it. I know people who can call 15 or 20 people a day. And they do so by making sure they look at the call timer, and at the 2-minute mark, they're negotiating their exit at the 3-minute mark. That's accomplishing nothing except checking boxes. When you speak to someone, ask them how they're doing. Everyone is going through similar challenges now. Work is slow. What does the future look like? You know, do you have your college kids home? Ask people how they're doing. You know, I have my 2 big girls home from college. Half the time I talk to someone who's a friend of mine, the question is, how are Lillian and Josie doing? And I say, well, Lillian especially is ready to go back to Boston. Lillian's 23. She doesn't want to be living in her bedroom with mommy or daddy anymore. You know, she loves mommy and daddy, but they want to get back to their life. Ask meaningful questions that you actually really care how they're doing. And it goes both ways. You're going to be asked, well, how are you doing? Don't say fine. Don't say good. Be truthful. Be real. I was talking to an insurance defense lawyer just the other day, and he asked me, like, how's work? Is it slowing down? And I said, yeah, it's slowing down. You know, it's been slow for a month. It might be slow for another month, you know, but we'll see. And he started laughing. And I said, why are you laughing? So I spoke to one of your competitors, and he's such a BSer, Gary. He says, oh, we're busy. We're busier than ever. And that person, by not being real, gave away credibility. You can't get that back. One stupid statement, and you give away your credibility. I told the truth. Somebody even used the word, I was a little vulnerable. It's really okay. So my strong suggestion is, if you see somebody familiar right now in all the boxes that are there, follow up with people, and follow with people often. These are sort of lonely times to some degree. And I really miss hugging. Follow up with someone, ask them how they're doing in a meaningful way, and they'll be happy to hear from you. And there's another big tip that I'd like to share with you. If you can see the slide, it says, be the glue. What does that mean? It means be the connector. You know, if you were at an event and you saw a friend of yours, and your friend of yours came up to you and said, who's that guy? That guy looks familiar. Well, what would you do? You'd introduce them. Or if you're at an event with a friend and the friend said, oh, that person is a family law attorney. I wish I knew her. I heard really good things about her. I could probably do some work with her. What would you do? You'd walk over and say, hey, meet so-and-so. But we can't do that now. You have to make the extra effort to be the connector. You know, I got a text yesterday, I believe, from friends of mine who were at my bank, and they said, I need a family law attorney. And we're texting back and forth, and he said, yeah, the person thought it was a coworker, thought it'd be an easy divorce. It's not going to be. And I said, well, you should reach out to my friend Cindy Crawford, who's a superb family law attorney, who may, I think, be on this call today, this webinar. And I texted Cindy, she appreciated it, and my friend at the bank appreciated it. This takes astonishing little effort. Maybe it's a family law attorney, maybe it's a home repair guy. I got a guy in my house right now fixing the fans outside. They're 12 feet high. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not climbing up a 12-foot ladder. As I've gotten older, you know, a little klutzier. And I got the person at my house from a friend of mine. So take the time and think about introductions you can make and how can you bring people together. Now more than ever, it's needed. And people will remember that, you know, you thought of them during these times when things are a little slower, a little more uncertain. And it's also quite likely that they're going to say, oh, you know, Bob referred me to this great client. I really appreciated it. So be the glue. Be the person who helps bring people together. It's why I've always liked chambers of commerce. Chambers of commerce have a simple mission. Bring businesses, bring working people together, and let them help each other's business, let them help the community. And that is what ends up happening. At the beginning of this webinar, we talked about the quality and quantity of relationships, and you know, who wants to have more relationships, who doesn't. Right now, people are making a huge mistake. More than ever, you don't want to leave something on the table. Now, it's great to do these things that we've talked about so far, to really make sure you're following up with people in a real and human way. Because what goes around comes around. And people will remember who's a real human being, you know, who is a fake person, and who didn't they hear from at all. Remember the people that they heard from in a meaningful way. And follow up with them, make introductions, but there needs to be one more important piece, which is, of course, the social media. There are people who are going dark. And I know people have businesses and they're gone. And I know they're struggling and I know they're worried. Are they going to be able to keep their staff? And these are challenging times. It's not the time to go dark. That's equivalent to if you're worried about food, you don't go grocery shopping anymore. You just hope you can survive off of what you have in your refrigerator in your pantry. That's not a strategy for survival in any way. It's not going to work in the long term. So this is a question. Does anyone know what God the Almighty says in the Bible about why he created Eve? What was his justification? Does anybody know? Does anybody want to chat or raise their hand? It's really easy. All right, getting some responses. We have a couple of, yes, very impressive. We have some Bible scholars in the group. Paul and Anne and Alexandra Slayton and Dorosmere Cartwright, Paul Hamby. Yeah. God says literally word for word in the Bible, man is not meant to be alone. That's it. Now, sorry for the gender specific term in 2020, but people are not meant to be alone. And we know that as Homo sapiens, we thrive on social interaction and the creativity that happens due to those relationships. So we have to make a greater effort in many fronts, in addition to the things we've been talking about. And this has to include social media. So first of all, if you look at the slide, lists 4 different platforms there. Are your profiles up to date? Take advantage of a little bit of downtime, or maybe at home at night. Go through your profiles thoroughly. What do you want to change? What do you want to add? And that's going to be very helpful. You should start doing that now. If you've not greatly increased your social media efforts, you need to do so like now, like today. So here are some tips on social media and using your social media. Again, this isn't something that exists in a vacuum. It has to exist as part of everything else that you're doing. Look at your contacts. Is there someone that you've lost contact with? Follow them on social media. Check in with them. See what they're posting. You can comment, you can share, you can like when they're doing something that speaks to you, that you can relate to. I have a friend who is driving her daughter to California to start a new job, and they're driving across the country together as a family, and the posts are unbelievable. In many ways, just meeting people in Louisiana versus New Mexico. Who's wearing masks? Who's not? What hotels ended up being a no-go? What are they doing for their business? What are they doing with their family? Life is a two-way street. So you should really follow and check in on people on social media. Are there people that you want to meet? Look at them up on social media. It's okay. Connect with them. The worst thing that happens is you do a Facebook or a LinkedIn connect and they don't accept it. Nothing ventured, nothing lost. But often people want connection. So you're going to connect with people on social media, make the effort. Maybe you have a friend in common. Ask that person to introduce you. And, again, two-way street, be available to connect people that you know with other people. Finally, let's talk a little bit about content. You have to provide meaningful information. If you are just posting things to post things, it's not helpful. Post things that speak to who you are as a person or to what's unique about you or your company. I talked about that we do no formal advertising. Sometimes I'll post about an aspect of that. And, when I tell someone that in person, we're a personal injury firm that does no advertising, I'll get a raised eyebrow. Like, really? Like, how are you getting by? Now I'm having a conversation. Or I tell them that we don't have paralegals who do our work, that we're lawyer-centric. We're very old school. We have lawyers communicate directly with clients working on the cases. I've had people say, oh, do you work at a concierge law firm? I'm never quite sure how to answer a question like that. But what is it that makes you special, personally or professionally? Don't be afraid to talk about it. You need to talk about it. This is an age when people are looking for connection, they're looking for reality. So you on your social media now have to be more active, and you need to be more real. Additionally, you need to have a plan for your social media posts. Once you identify what is unique about you, really think about it. And if you're not sure the answer, brainstorm it with people, with your friends, people who know you. Do you have friends who can support your social media efforts? Ask them to comment, like, share. Now, what's interesting is if you do that enough, it starts to happen organically. My friend Tara Laxer, who I mentioned before, who works with Outbreak Jewish Family Service, when this webinar got posted, she shared it. I didn't ask her to. I'm not shy, I certainly would have. But that is what a giving person does. Be a giver on social media. Like, comment, and share. Ask your friends to do that, and do that for your friends as well. See what they're doing. Like, comment, and share. Otherwise, what you have is what I call social media darkness. Or to put it a different way, it's the old saying, if a tree falls in the wilderness, no one sees it, doesn't make a sound. This is the same thing if you're on social media, that you're getting 1 or 2 likes because you're just out there on your own. People don't like to ask for help sometimes. You really should. You'd be amazed at how your friends and even sometimes your acquaintances will try to help you, because we are literally all on this together. So we have to support each other. Ask your friends for social media help and ask them, because it becomes a question. Are you being a giver, or are you just a taker? In the real world, if we're not talking about social media, if you're a giver, you'd say, well, of course I'm a giver. I'm a very nice person. I do things for people. You have to focus those efforts now on social media. Support your friends. They'll support you. It's just like in real life, one good deed is going to lead to another. Now, next slide is email is not the enemy. It feels like it sometimes. I joke that email is the enemy of progress because it feels that way sometimes, right? Especially now with coronavirus times, people are emailing. We're not seeing each other, we're not at meetings. So I have more emails than ever. And it feels like we're spending so much time responding to emails, and I'm not really working. Well, I think you need to look at it differently. Email isn't the enemy. There's a few things that you can do to utilize email in a way that'll be helpful to you during these times. Number one, as the slide says, email newsletters. There's some easy do's and don'ts. Don't ask for business. Everyone wants business. And don't flood people with useless information. It's a quick delete. And don't make it too long. Typo. Whoops. Too long should have 2 O's. Damn it. But what should you be doing? Be consistent. Share your company story, and value, and mission, and share some helpful information. Otherwise, people are going to delete it just as quickly as they'll delete. You have to have something in that content that makes them start to look. For us, we talk about at least one cause that we're supporting. We talk about a case where we got a particular result. We talk about our people. Talk about your values. Talk about who you are. That really makes a difference. I'm seeing a lot of email blasts, and I'm seeing some folks who are doing it really well, doing just what we're talking about right now. Meaningful content that people want to see. And then I see so much useless information. And we started sending out monthly email blasts a few years ago. And honestly, we miss months. It just happens. We don't mean to, but we get busy. But when we do send out the email blasts, we try to make sure we talk about the community, meaningful content, values that we believe in. Maybe just some helpful information about health, something that can connect with people. If you're just trying to push yourself, don't do this at all. If you're trying to send something out that will resonate with people, that's the approach. If you've given up on email newsletters during these coronavirus times, start up again. Again, not too long. You can use Constant Contact, MailChimp. Constant Contact's going into a lot of spam filters these days, and they're more sophisticated templates. If you don't have someone who can help you, if you don't have someone who's doing this for you, there are companies that do this pretty reasonably. Probably can get a recommendation from the chamber from some technology companies, but it's really not that hard to do it in-house. Now, I'm a big believer also in email check-ins, like we were talking about before, or text. Hey, how are you? Send an email. you know that their kid is, applying to and getting into college, send an email. Is Bob excited about starting at the University of Connecticut? In a real way. I say all the time, you can be a mercenary or a real person. Be a real person. It stands out. It's a little extra effort and being a little thoughtful, but it really, really works. Other things that you can do besides the email, you can send a text. I like texts. You also can send a handwritten note. Using the chat for a second, how many people regularly send handwritten notes? Type, respond yes, no, a lot. Give your best answer. Lots of yeses. You all are better than me. This is an area I really need to work on, but I try. Fantastic. Wow, a lot of people doing this. Make this a priority. Sometimes we get so busy, we forget that just slowing down, to take the time to make a little effort, be it an email about, how's your kid doing, to the handwritten note, that is gold. It says to the person on the receiving end, wow, Jill took time to write this note to me. The content is even less important. Be a real person who makes the effort, and that's going to carry you a lot further. Because what comes around does go around. And when you are known as someone who's a good person, who actually cares about other people, and the invisible Rolodex in someone's mind, have a little gold star next to you. Good person. At the end of the day, you can't fake that. You are a good person or you are a mercenary. I've always been an optimist. I think that most people are good people, but we have to take the time to slow down and make that clear to other people. Still more, sometimes. Lots of yeses. Eileen Goldstein, hey Eileen, said she sends cards out daily. That's amazing. This is an area that takes very little time that really is going to come back to you. There's the email check-in and other tools. We already kind of talked about this. And of course, the Chamber will make this PowerPoint slideshow available to you. One of the things that you also can do is make an appointment. Give yourself a reminder to reach out to somebody. The problem is, I don't know about you, but sometimes it's 9:30 or 10 o'clock and I'm at home and I'm plugging away, go, oh God, I meant to reach out to someone. And I have the thought, and then the thought is gone. That's bad. You can't let those thoughts get away. Those thoughts, those thoughtful thoughts, are going to be what helps carry you through. Write yourself a note, make yourself an appointment to follow up with the person. I just made an appointment to talk to someone on Friday at 4 o'clock. Why Friday at 4 o'clock? Because I reached out to the person, and that was the time they gave me. Why not? Now it's an appointment on my schedule. You have to adjust, especially those of us who are working at home. It's different from the rhythm that you were used to when you were working in the office. You have to make yourself do these things, or they're not going to happen at all. So the 3 C's, caring, compassion, connecting. Angel Adams of my office, our communications director, came up with most of these slides, including this one. I wouldn't have come up with something like this. Not that I'm not caring or compassionate, or I'm just not artistic. I can barely write my own name. But you could take this slide and draw lines connecting them to each other, because they don't work in isolation. They work best together. And if you really care, you take the time, show that you have compassion, and that's going to help you connect with other people. And by the way, this is what we should be doing all the time. When we get back to the new normal and whatever that's going to look like, this is what we still need to be doing. But right now in these times, and it's unclear when we're going to have mass gatherings and in-person meetings again, these are the strengths that you need to lean into. These are the things that will help you create, build, and maintain solid relationships that will help you during these times and going forward. You can give a business card to someone, but people will remember that you cared. Because that's what a relationship is. It's a two-way street where you're looking out for someone. That's the best way to have someone look out for you. Take the time and do some of these things we've been talking about, and I'm open for questions. Which Brittany's going to make happen.
Yes. Thank you very
Brittany,
much.
how do you want to have people ask questions? Do it by chat, by raising their hand?
Yeah, so I can actually see if someone's going to raise their hand. I do have a couple questions I can get us started.
Brittany, I can't hear you.
Oh, no.
You're not muted, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? No? Okay.
Angel, can anyone else? Bianca, can you hear Brittany?
I can hear you, Brittany.
Oh, wait a second.
Eric, maybe you.
The problem
Okay.
is
Yeah,
me.
You're
I
fine.
muted my computer, so all the notifications would stop.
Okay, good. But I
That's
also
what a-
thought
that's
it was
what a
made
pro
with my
does.
speaker. Okay. Well, we can go through a couple questions that I received in the chat. And if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat, and I'll monitor that as we go on. Okay, so first question is, I love virtual coffee and lunches, etc. I'm more of a phone person, but I know some people are not. So then there's the question of phone or email.
It's a really good question. One of the things that we do here at the firm, when it was just my semi-retired dad and part-time Debbie, the receptionist, and me, with no clients there for a while, that was pretty lonely. And I did a lot of stuff on my own. Now that we have this vibrant, healthy firm, it still feels weird sometimes. We collaborate a lot, and we talk and we brainstorm. So email, phone call, video call. It really depends. There's no right answer here. I think it's somewhat dependent on the relationship that you have with the person. If it's someone who, you're closer to, that you really miss, that you used to see more often, offer the video call. If it's just a question of checking in to let the person know you're thinking about them, but maybe you don't want a whole conversation at that time, that's fine. A thoughtful email is good. And then for the middle area, a phone call is good too. I'm doing something sort of crazy right now in these times. I'm running for president of the Florida Bar. Usually you go all over the state meeting and talking with people, and I'm sitting in my office making phone calls. More phone calls a day than I've ever made in my life. And what I found is people are lonely. People want human interaction. So I'll tell you that if you make the phone call, it's not going to be that 3-minute mercenary call. Don't plan on it. If so, don't make the call. Call the person, ask them how they're doing, be willing to talk about how you're doing, like I said before. But this could be a 10-minute or more call. But you know what? It's a phone call that will be remembered. So I think the answer to the question is, how long of an interaction do you have based on the relationship that you have or would like to have with that person?
Okay, great. Next question is, what do you think about automation tools or companies to follow up with clients, customers, etc.? And do you have any suggestions if so?
It's a good question. I think automated tools are great. Just don't look automated, I don't know who else on the call is. I've gotten the robocalls. I want to say, listen, I'm pretty sure that's never going to work with anybody, ever. You get a robocall, you have a voice talking to you. It's not even a real conversation. Don't do that. We've sent out some emails that I will tell you are form emails. And we spend a lot of time to make sure they don't look like a form email. Don't send out everything to dear Mr. So-and-so. If you're sending a dear Mr. So-and-so to your friend, Jason Cohen, Jason's going to expect to get an email that says, because Jason's on the call, looking right at him. Jason would expect to get a call from his friend Gary that says, hello, Jason. So, utilizing automated tools are great, but never appear automated, never appear like they're just a person who's being reached out to because you're reaching out to X number of people. So that's my answer to that. Use it sparingly and carefully.
Okay. Next question is, as a newer business, I am still trying to get to know others in our community. Some of the calls I want to make is to create new relationships with people who I have not yet had the opportunity to meet. So do you have any tips on maybe just reaching out to someone that initially you want to make that touch point and set up a meeting?
My advice to Alexandra is I love Zoom. Now that I know how to use it, it's awesome. And the technology was always there to do this. So my advice to you, Alexandra, is don't be shy. Do a little cyber stalking. Look them up on Facebook. Look them up on LinkedIn, and see who you know in common with that person. You'd be surprised. You know, I got an email from this lawyer in Orlando who knows I'm running for president of the Florida Bar, and I looked him up. We have like 127 Facebook friends in common. How is that even possible? I won't tell you, there are reasons why. So number one, look that person up and see who you know in common. And if you know someone in common, who do you know best? Reach out to that person. Ask for the introduction. Either an email introduction, which is best, because that allows you to take it from there, or if they won't do that, allow them, have them say, okay, you can use my name in the email or the phone call. But an email introduction, it's a handshake at a chamber breakfast. Go meet my friend Bob. That's what you're trying to do in the virtual world. So when you're trying to meet new people, look them up. Start on Facebook and LinkedIn. You will be surprised how many people you have in common. You think you won't, but you will. If you don't, which is possible, I always joke and say, listen, I'm reaching out to you. Please pardon the call, but I thought it'd be good for us to connect. And this is not a time to be shy. It's a real intro. If you're going to cold call someone, which is always hard to do so in a human way. Take the time to say, I'm calling because I just thought it'd be good to connect, and sorry for calling you during these coronavirus times or something like that. But I'm telling you, 90% out of the time, you're gonna have contacts in common, and that's really gonna work for you, okay?
Great suggestion. And actually, as a follow-up, what if people don't answer your call or return your call or online message? What do you do then?
Move on. No, but yeah, it's a question. Well, if you've called people and emailed people and they're not getting back to you, take the time to look to see who you've reached out to and go back to step one. Who do you know in common? I hate to leave anything on the table, right? So go back to the people that you called or emailed without success. Look them up, just like we talked about. You're gonna find people in common. And when you have someone who does that email introduction for you, or gives you the permission to use their name, your success rate's going to increase. To do that, and if that doesn't work and they still don't get back to you, move on. I like to make lists. You can't really see that because of the virtual. Now you know this is not my real office. Dang it, I wish this was my office, because you can't see the object I'm really holding. Make a list, get back to them later, but use your time wisely and well. Focus up on relationship, referral, introductions.
Okay, great. All right, well, it looks like I have concluded the question and answer portion. So with that, I wanted to go ahead and thank you, Gary, for your time today, giving us some best practices on how to build relationships in our community. Do you have any final words you want to say before we conclude the webinar?
I do, which would surprise people on this call who know me, not at all. Be organized, be thoughtful, and come up with an action plan. If you don't have an action plan, come up with it now. If you have an action plan, modify it, incorporate some of the things that we're talking about. Nothing beats relationships. I remember years ago going to a chamber event, and I bumped into this guy, and I realized, I see this guy at everything. And then one day I just had this moment, and I watched him. And he went around the room, hey, how are you? Talked to someone for like a minute, gave him a business card. And I just watched him work the room like that. And I didn't get it. It didn't make any sense to me. His way of doing business, so to speak, didn't make sense to me. And so at the end, I went up to him and said, hey, did you have a good morning? Oh, this is a great look. No more cards left. That doesn't work. And that's not going to work now in the virtual world. Lean into your strengths. Make lists if you have to. Sit down and figure out who are people that are meaningful to you. And I don't just mean your buddies. You know, I saw Jason Cohen there. Our firms do a lot of work together. Fantastic commercial litigation firm. Jason, I haven't reached out to you. You haven't reached out to me. The point being, we both should have already reached out to each other. This is an ongoing heavy lift for the foreseeable future. Make lists. Be thoughtful about who are the people that you like, who are the people that you work with, and who are the people you want to be in touch with. If you don't make lists, if you don't approach this in an organized way, including making appointments to follow up with people, you're not going to be effective. On Friday, you're going to call someone. On Monday next week, you're going to call 2 people. On Thursday, you're going to say, oh God, I really wish I'd reached out to somebody else. When this ends, sit down and make a list. Tomorrow, sit down and make a list and follow up with those people, your relationships in the way we've been discussing. And you're going to emerge from these coronavirus times stronger than you were, perhaps, because you put the investment into your relationships. That's how you make business work. You provide the results, of course, you do the good job, but if you are a reliable person, that's how you will be known. That's how you maintain and grow your business. The last slide has my contact info. The Chamber can make these slides as PowerPoint presentation available. And you can feel free to reach out to me at any time with any questions on what we discussed or anything else for that matter. And Brittany, I think that's it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again. Stay tuned for our next and upcoming events. We do have our Tech Toast tomorrow at 4 o'clock. We have a trivia night coming up on June 17th, another Tech Toast that Thursday, and when our next webinar is on the PPP program. So go to pdnchamber.com for all of our upcoming events. And I want to thank you so much, Gary, for the information that you shared with us today. Number one reason why people want to be a part of a chamber is to make the connection. So this is a very relevant topic to in general, but also today. So thank you again, and everyone have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see you soon.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Talk to you soon. Hope to see you soon.
Bye, guys. Miss you, love you.